In the latest countrywide demonstration against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's planned judicial overhaul, the Israeli protesters, they've now blocked highways and gathered outside Tel Aviv Stock Exchange and military headquarters. According to reports, 161 of the Corps' reserve officers have vowed not to report for duty, while the Israeli police scuffled with protesters marching near Parliament. As legislators prepare to ratify one of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's disputed judicial bills, police mounted on horses and dispersed massive crowds as flag-waving demonstrators marched on the streets, closing in on Prime Minister Netanyahu's residence.
We're fighting here for our rights, and we're fighting that other people can receive rights, and not just us. We're fighting for a better country. We're fighting for justice.
The day of disruption comes as long-time allies of the Prime Minister pushed a contentious piece of legislation through a parliamentary committee ahead of a vote expected next week. However, the additional protests are planned throughout the day as well. Following nationwide stunts, thousands marched to the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange building, where dozens entered the building tossing fake banknotes as symbols of corruption. Police reported a half-dozen highway closures by demonstrators and made at least 17 arrests. Medics further said a woman was hit by a car and was injured.
Government is trying to take from us.
Demonstrators, many of them who were military reservists, created human chains, blocked one of the entrances to Israel's military headquarters in central Tel Aviv as well.
We are citizens of Israel, serving in the army, paying taxes. We're here to say to Israel's government, the more you press, the harder we resist. We are saying no to dictatorship, and it will not pass.
Now, the weekly mass protest led Netanyahu to suspend the overhaul in March, but he decided to revive the plan last month after compromise talks with the opposition collapsed.
המדינה היא של כולנו, ואני רוצה לומר לכם, דווקא משום שהמדינה היא של כולנו, אנו מבינים שחלק מהציבור חרד משינוי שהוא חושב שיקרה פה בדמותה של המדינה. ולכן אני רוצה להדגיש, אנחנו כתלמידי ז'בוטינסקי מחויבים שישראל תישאר מדינת לאום יהודית ודמוקרטית, חופשית, ליברלית, שמקדשת את שלטון הרוב בצד זכויות הפרט.
Now, the proposed laws would grant lawmakers greater control over the appointment of judges and give Parliament the power to overturn High Court decisions. However, critics say the judicial overhaul will concentrate power in the hands of Netanyahu and his allies and undermine the country's system of checks and balances. They also say Netanyahu has a conflict of interest because he is on a trial for charges of fraud, breach of trust and accepting bribes. For more on this, we're now being joined by our correspondent, Jody Cohen, live from Ra'anana. Thank you so much for joining us, Jody. What can you tell us about the scuffles between protesters and the police in Tel Aviv on Tuesday night?
Hi, Hem. So on Tuesday evening, protesters blocked the Ayalon highway in Tel Aviv for about 2 hours. They set bonfires and sprayed graffiti on the roads, and police used water cannons to disperse them. But remember that there have been tens of thousands of protesters across the country protesting. 45 arrests were made. So on the whole, the protest went by peacefully. Now, Tuesday night, some protesters also began a 4-day march from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And on Wednesday, the Israel Medical Association announced a 2-hour doctors' warning strike and said that that could be expanded next week. Now, I'm here in Ra'anana at a protest of the high-tech workers and academic workers from the Open University. On Thursday, top business leaders, including owners of banks, hotels, shopping malls and retail chains, are set to set up a protest tent in Jerusalem. And meanwhile, the Justice Committee is voting on proposed amendments to the current bill in preparation for the second and third readings in Parliament next week. The coalition would like to pass this bill by recess, which is the end of July. Now, leader of the opposition, Yair Lapid, said he's been having some interesting conversations with some Likud MPs. Now, that is, remember, Likud is the party of the Prime Minister, and he's reportedly trying to persuade some of those MPs to vote against the bill. Now, President Herzog, when he was meeting with President Biden, said that the protests are proof of Israel's thriving democracy and that he will redouble efforts to try and seek a compromise.
Right, Jody. Also, these protests were in the backdrop of President Herzog meeting with President Joe Biden, who we know has expressed concern over the judicial reform plans. What was said on this matter? What can we expect today from President Herzog's visit?
So President Herzog met, as you said, with President Biden. They discussed a whole range of Israel's issues. They talked about Israeli and Palestinian security. They talked about Iran, normalization, and of course, the judicial reform issue. Now, remember, President Biden spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu on Monday night, and he emphasized the importance of democracy being a shared value for the two countries. And Prime Minister Netanyahu said that he would seek broad support for further changes over the summer. Herzog also met with Secretary of State Blinken. Today, he's going to be addressing Congress. Now, that's going to be a historic occasion. It's only the second time that an Israeli president has addressed Congress. And the first time that happened was actually from his father, Chaim Herzog, when he was the president. Overall, I think the general message of this visit is that, yes, there have been tensions between the Biden and Netanyahu administrations. There's no secret that there is disagreement on issues like the settlements, like the Iran nuclear deal and judicial reform. And there's been no in-person meeting yet between President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu, although Biden did call Netanyahu and reportedly extended an invitation to him to the United States. And the other key message is that there are still close Israeli-US relations, especially when it comes to security cooperation, with President Biden saying that America's friendship with Israel is unbreakable.
Right. Well, Jody, thank you so much for bringing us the latest on this.
Thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.